Hey everyone, good morning and welcome back to the channel. It's another beautiful day here in Central Florida. And so I thought, you know what, before I really get my day started, we need to make our way out onto the balcony, sit down and chat for a little bit because there's something that's been on my mind and I know it's been on yours as well because you guys have commented on some of our past discussions. And that is like this comparison between Epcot's reimagining and what they're doing over at Universal for Epic Universe. Now, I want to get into this today. I want to share some of my thoughts with you, expand on this topic a little bit, but you guys know the drill. We're hanging out here on the balcony. We need to sip on something cold and delicious, so make sure you go grab something for yourself, get comfortable, and we'll dig in. But today, I've got something a little bit different. Normally, I'm sipping on some coffee this early in the morning, but I thought that I would try out some water, special water. I'm going to tell you a little bit about. I know, water is silly, right? Because sometimes it feels more special than others, and I don't know. There are a lot of people who are selling lots of different types of water. But recently we stayed over at Disney's Saratoga Springs Resort, and there at the quick service, they have these glass bottles of water, these blue glass bottles of Saratoga brand water, and I wanted to pick one up, but I was like, let me see if I can find it elsewhere. I found it at my local Publix in a giant bottle, so here it is. I picked one up for the same price as a smaller bottle. This is Saratoga still, perfectly balanced natural spring water since 1872. So I figure we can crack this baby open and sip on this to start our day. It's always great to hydrate first thing in the morning, so that's what we're gonna do today. And I'll tell you what I think as we kind of get things started. It's kind of humid out, so this bottle is all sweaty, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to open it, but we'll try. Okay, here we go. All right. Smells like water. Got a cup here. I'm going to pour some in. Start there. All right, let's take a sip. Cheers. Oh, that's really good. You know, some water is better than other water. I know, that sounds ridiculous to say, but it's true. Anyway, so put this over here and let's get this conversation started. So recently we've been talking a lot about the Epcot reimagining. Some of you may have seen our past discussions about that because it's done according to Disney. And look, there's a lot that could be said about this, and I've had a lot to say about this. In fact, I posted on social media, over on Instagram. I post little like stories over on Instagram if you're interested in checking those out. I also post some thoughts randomly on our community page here on the YouTube channel. But anyway, I've been posting some thoughts over there, and I've had a lot to say about the Epcot reimagining. I do think that it kind of falls short in some areas, and I explain why that's the case. But I also think that people are like, they're not being fair with some of their criticisms. And I went into that the other day, so I'm not going to go into it again because who needs to hear that conversation over again? But some of you have commented on that discussion about Universal's progress with Epic Universe. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, because some of you might not be, Universal is the second like major resort here in this area. Of course there are others, but it's kind of like Disney and Universal head-to-head titans here in the Central Florida area. And they, a while ago, announced that they were going to be opening up another theme park. And this theme park is called Epic Universe. It's gonna be it's technically the third theme park at Universal, but the water park over at Universal is considered a theme park, so I suppose you could call it the fourth. It's all a matter of opinion, but I reference it as the third because I don't really count water parks as theme parks, just like I don't say that Disney has 6 parks. I say that they have 4, but you know, that's a matter of opinion, however you want to describe that. Anyway, there's a lot that can be said about Epic Universe. I'm really excited for Epic Universe for a long list of reasons, which I do want to chat with you about here probably later this week. We're going to make our way over to Universal. I know I said that during our last visit to Universal. I said we're going to make our way over there, maybe get a hot butter beer. Then again, might be a little too hot for a hot butter beer, so maybe we get a butter beer, maybe we get something else, sip on it, and I chat with you about some of my thoughts on especially the new announcement, which is Dark Universe. But I'm not alone in being excited about Epic Universe. It's another theme park in this area, and especially if you're a fan of Universal, which I have become, it's really exciting to know that there's going to be even more of it here in this area. But anyway, the reason that Universal seems to come up a lot whenever we talk about progress on anything at the Walt Disney World Resort is because, number one, Titans, but number two, the timeline for how long it has taken Disney to finish certain projects, especially in the recent past, has been like really drawn out. And when you look at what's going on at Universal, especially with Epic Universe, it seems like things are moving along so much quicker, and people are like, well, clearly Universal is better at this than Disney is. And this has like amplified, especially with the completion of the Epcot reimagining. And yes, I keep using air quotes because I don't really feel good about saying the completion of the reimagining. It's like they put it to bed, And I think that there's a whole discussion that we could have there about how Disney is kind of putting these projects that they started during a very particular time frame to bed so that they can move on from there and the expectations can be realigned. But again, that's probably a whole discussion for another day as well. But anyway, I totally understand why people draw comparisons when it comes to the time frames, because again, we're looking at two titans in the theme park industry in this space. People often reference them as though they're competitors, which I don't really think is accurate. I think that is a misunderstanding of what the two places are. I don't think that they compete. I think that they work together, and I think that they know that. I think that there are a lot of people out there who like to look at them as competitors because team sports are fun. So, Team Disney versus Team Universal, but they're both very different experiences for very different demographics. We're talking about one place that caters to families. We're talking about one place that caters to thrill seekers. And if you can't recognize that, I honestly feel like you're not paying attention, or you're just feeding into like the whole team sport thing, which, everyone does their own thing for their own reasons. But they are, when you kind of step back, you zoom out a little bit, they're honestly working together. But going back to the topic of like progress with construction, I think it's really easy for people to compare the two because, again, like I said, two titans, even though they are working together, at least in my opinion. But it's natural. It's natural for people to want to look at both and draw comparisons, which is what they're doing. The challenge is that, well, again, when you're not zooming out, when you're not looking at the bigger picture, or when you just don't understand certain aspects of certain types of topics, it can be easy to miss really important details and draw comparisons that aren't necessarily fair comparisons to draw. Okay, I know we talked a little bit about this the other day when we talked about the Epcot construction project or the Epcot reimagining, but I think that the same thing is also true when we draw comparisons between Universal and Walt Disney World, specifically looking at things like the Tron coaster, which, was a joke for a while that it took Disney X number of years to complete Tron, but it's only going to take Universal X number of years to build an entire theme park. Same thing is being said when it comes to the Epcot reimagining. It took Disney all of this time to insert whatever people are complaining about here. Right now it's like Communicore Hall and Plaza, but it's taking Universal a significantly smaller amount of time to build an entire theme park. That isn't really a good representation of what's happening here. And again, fan of Disney, fan of Universal, critical of both. But we need to look at this with a little bit more than this that comes with any discussions related to these two major vacation destinations here in this area. So first and foremost, something that I have a really hard time getting past anytime we have discussions like this is comparing anything that is done to something that is not done. So I get it. Progress is what it is over at Epic Universe right now, but to add to a discussion about something that was already completed, that is complete, whether or not it delivered what we wanted it to deliver, comparing that to something that is yet to be complete based on projected opening dates, that's a little ridiculous. And I also think that it's a little ridiculous based on knowledge of these things. Looking back and seeing how things get delayed, how things get pushed back, how weather, especially in a place that experiences hurricanes, can delay construction projects. We are hoping that Epic Universe opens when it's projected to open, but the odds that it won't, they exist. And they're good enough to recognize that things might be delayed. Things might take longer than they are originally projected to take. As it is, Epic Universe is still a year out. A lot can happen in a year. So I have a really hard time looking at like completed projects over at Walt Disney World and being like, oh yeah, well, Epic has done all of this in the time it's taken you to do that. No, Epic is working on all of this and is projecting to finish all of that in the time that it took Disney to do something else and complete it. That's not the same thing. And I think we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that we shouldn't count our chickens before they hatch with Epic Universe. We're also hoping that all of the concepts that Universal has given to us, they have presented to us, are actually going to be delivered the way that they're presented, which is another one of those little things that I'm struggling to take seriously from people who are complaining that Disney did not deliver their concept, and then looking at Universal, who has only delivered concepts. We haven't seen everything fully completed, and they're like, well, obviously this is going to be better. You don't know that. Now, the next thing we have to talk about, and I know some of you are going to roll your eyes at me, but we got to talk about the pandemic, because it's one of those things that played a major role and impacted Disney in a different way than it impacted Universal. Again, I don't know for sure. I'm not working on either project, but there's no way that it didn't, and I'm going to explain to you why. Before I get into that though, this is the perfect time to say that you don't know what you don't know. And it's really no one's fault for not having experience in certain areas, because not everyone has the same experience. But I have experience in a particular area that I want to share my perspective so that maybe it can give you a little bit more information to build your opinions on. It's what we do over here all the time. So why should this be any different? One thing that a lot of people aren't considering when they talk about how the pandemic impacted Disney and how it slowed things down is just how hard it was to get rolling again with projects, especially construction projects. We were in the middle of a major project during this time frame. We had started in 2019, and it shouldn't have been that big a deal. But things shut down, which was this chunk of time where we couldn't do anything. And then even when things opened back up, it was really, really hard to get things rolling again, because things just weren't available, or you couldn't get them when you wanted to. And I'm talking about physical things like construction materials and people. And what this actually meant in a nutshell, just so I don't have to relive that whole experience, because it was kind of a nightmare, is that if you broke ground on your project prior to the shutdowns, prior to everything that happened in 2020, there was a lot of work to halt that project, to button everything up. And then not only was there time, but it was such a long time before you could actually make progress again, like real progress again. And this is where there's a huge difference in terms of timelines, at least in my opinion, between Disney and Universal. Disney broke ground prior to the shutdown. Universal delayed their project because they hadn't started yet, breaking ground at some point in 2021. Just based on time frame alone, there's a big difference in how those projects would have proceeded forward. You know, Disney kind of did this thing where all of a sudden it went to a halt, and then it stayed there, and they had to climb again. Universal, they were on the up the whole time, or at least could be on the up the whole time. It might have started off a little bit slow, but then once it was cooking, you know? And I do think that there's also something to be said for what was being done. You know, the beginning of a project is very different from what it looks like a third of the way through. And that's going to especially be true when what we're talking about isn't building from the ground up, but we're talking about demoing an existing area and then building from the ground up over at Epcot. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's two very different types of projects, two very different lists of things to do, and so I don't really think that it's a fair comparison. And again, not based on being a fan of one versus the other, but like let's just be real here for a second. Our personal opinions and interests aside, if you were told that you had to tear something down, get it ready to build on, and then build it back up, that's a very different thing from preparing land to build on it and then building it. And I feel like that's another aspect of this that's being ignored. And it's convenient to ignore it because, again, team sports. People like to be on a team. They like to compare this team to that team and see who can do whatever it is that they do better. And there are a lot of great ways to do that. There are a lot of great areas that are fair comparisons, at least in my opinion. This isn't one of them. And I just think it's silly to compare the two. But anyway, now, will it ever be fair to compare the projects over at Walt Disney World to the project that is Epic Universe? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that time will come as soon as Epic Universe is finished. When it's open, when everything is working as advertised, then we can unleash all of our rage on Disney and be like, you definitely didn't deliver. Assuming that they do nothing between now and then, which I don't think they're going to do much, but that's beside the point. Assuming that they do nothing between now and then, I absolutely think that it will be fair to criticize Disney for all the things that they lacked based on what Universal delivered. But Universal hasn't delivered anything. They haven't delivered anything that we didn't get from Disney before they under-delivered on Epcot. So I just think that that's food for thought. I just think that it's something that we should keep in our head, and we should be careful of criticizing one over the other when we don't even know what we're getting yet with Epic Universe. We don't. We just don't. And I know that we're so stoked for it. We're so excited, because I am so excited. I can't even tell you. But we've been excited for other things before. And we've been disappointed by those things. So let's not count our chickens before they hatch. Okay? Does that sound good? Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on all of this. I'd love for you to just kind of share them in the comments down below. Also, let me know what you were sipping on today. This was really good. I mean, it's water, but it's delicious water. I also like that it's in a glass bottle. Though glass isn't really nice for carrying around. You can't bring a glass bottle into the theme parks, for example. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on all that we discussed today. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you have to say, and I'm really looking forward to you joining me on our next adventure. I found this great little place nearby where they have some delicious breakfast offerings, though you can enjoy it any time of the day. I want to take you there. I especially want to take you there for coffee because they have some great stuff on the menu. And I haven't tried it, so I don't know if it's any good, but maybe we could try it together, chat about something. I'm sure we'll think of something. I'm sure we'll come up with a topic to discuss. Until then, make sure that you hit that thumbs up button if you enjoyed today's discussion. And like I said, share all your comments down below. Subscribe so that you don't miss our next discussion. It's going to be a doozy. We also have some fun adventures on the way, and you don't want to miss those. But for now, I think it's time to get our day started. You ready to get your day started? I hope so. Whatever it is you're doing, I hope that it goes smooth. I hope you enjoy yourself, even if it's just for a couple minutes. And I hope the weather's as nice there as it is, at least right now, over here. All right, enough delaying. Let's head out. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.